for every level in business, there's always another devil. So if you're listening right now going, I'm always going constraints. Well, there's not a single business out there that doesn't have constraint.
Rebooking as a system is getting a yes from the patient in the room that they are happy to follow your advice. That's part of the system. One step before that is how we actually present the solution to them. That's the system.
For everyone that's listening, it's like, well, what's that one thing we need right now? And understand that the challenge or the frustration of actually trying to fix it is all part of the process and part of the growth.
If you want to grow your practice and go to that next level, then it's time to confront the real constraints that are actually holding you back. That's where we are headed in today's podcast episode. Hey guys, Tristan Bond here, founder of Practice Acceleration, and today we are talking about how to go to that next level inside your practice, because it's really about confronting the real constraints that are actually holding you back. And to join me on today's episode, I've got now Captain Courageous, King of Clever, and what else do we have? Lord of Handsomeness, Dave McDonald. Welcome to the show, Dave.
Can't do you say I'm a captain, king, and lord.
Captain, king, and a lord. Wowza.
So good. I should come here more often. You pump up my tires.
Yeah, well, imagine when we go out in public over in the UK with all those titles. Wow, you must be like a celebrity experience for everyone.
I'm like a monster truck when I get here.
Oh, I love that.
My tires are pumped up so much.
Oh, that's what we want. That's what we want.
Pumped up tires.
So today's it's a really good topic because we're talking about how to go to that next level in business. And we've got a 2-day workshop coming up tomorrow and Friday with some of our Vanguard members. And one of the topics I'm talking about is constraint theory. And I wanted to talk about this today in this episode because it's so valid. It's like going to that next level. It's often not so much about adding things in; it's about taking things out.
Yeah.
And it's not just about that. It's about actually identifying what the real problem is. Because I think that so often, just in life generally, we're experiencing a problem. In the context of today's episode, we're talking about business. We're experiencing a business problem. It's really stressful. We're overwhelmed, and we're like, we just want the problem to go away.
Yeah.
We just want to get to that next level. And if we break it down, it might be about, I'm stressed out, I need more of this, or I need more of that, or less of this. Business is really about 3 things to bring satisfaction. Is how do we get paid what we are worth, what we want. It's how do we have the time out that we want, and it's how do we do the activities that we want. How do we have freedom of finances, freedom of time, and freedom of headspace?
Oh, I love that.
Right? So everything really comes down to that banner, and it's like, is this thing that we're doing, is it helping us get one of those 3 things?
Yes.
And if something's not working, we need to identify the constraint and go, well, what is stopping us getting those 3 things? Or what is actually happening within this process that's not working?
Or perhaps they're not necessarily it's a problem, it's just they want to get there faster, easier.
Exactly.
I think before we go into some of the challenges it face, I think it's really important to address that a business at any period of time is going to have constraints. And
Absolutely.
And that's either because by default and design, I know we spoke about that before. What I mean by that is we run into a problem because something's not working effectively or efficiently, and therefore we're not getting to our outcome.
Yes.
But then there's also times where we are achieving a certain outcome, but maybe the founder just wants it better, faster, stronger, more efficiently.
I can relate. I can relate.
So constraints can be self-made almost because it's, for every level in business, there's always another devil. So if you're listening right now going, I'm always going constraints. Well, there's not a single business out there that doesn't have a constraint.
And it's normal.
Yeah.
And it's like, to get to that next level, what is the actual constraint that we want to solve, and how do we pick that one thing, right?
That's it.
And so if we have constraints in place and we're not approaching them from the right perspective, some of the symptoms you might be experiencing as a business owner are, you might feel like, number one, you're grinding constantly.
Yeah.
You might feel like you're grinding constantly.
It's not natural.
Yeah. And then you're so frustrated that the go-to to fix that might be like, let's just throw everything at this to try to fix it.
Yeah.
Like I've had it like this bomb, put fire hose in it, try to fix it.
Mountain out of a molehill.
Yeah.
Like, on blow up. Oh.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't work, right? Because we're not being systematic about it. And the overall impact is stressed and overwhelmed, okay? So we're grinding constantly, or, throw all of our attention at this one thing and try to fix it, and then it doesn't work, and we're stressed and overwhelmed.
Because of the trees.
Exactly. And then stuck and overwhelmed is the overall impact.
Yes.
Right? But when we use constraint theory in the way that Dave and I do it here at Practice Acceleration, the way that Sarah does it here at Practice Acceleration, things change. And what are some of the benefits?
Well, benefit number one is, rather than being grinding, it just means it's a lot more natural. Is that, we say this word flow a lot, but it's really about there's a lot more ease to it.
Yes.
There's a lot more flow, there's a lot more natural, rather than it feeling really difficult. Number two is, rather than trying to focus on everything or trying to fix the whole thing, we just try and focus one little thing.
One part of it.
One little part of it. Absolutely. And then finally, as a result of it being more natural, more ease, inflow, focusing on one thing, then you're a lot more confident and you feel a lot more in control about the necessary changes, rather than this overwhelming stress of trying to change too much at one time.
Absolutely. And one of the things we're doing tomorrow morning at Vanguard is we go through what we call the board presentation.
Oh, love them.
So we've got 20, 25 clients flying in, and we go through and we review the quarter. What worked, what didn't, what are the challenges, and then you and I identify the constraints.
Yes.
And we look at the practice's revenue, the profitability, and we go through all the factors that have driven the growth. And we track all the important KPIs. So we know if these KPIs are hitting their goals, then we know that everyone's in flow, right? So what we can do is look at, if a KPI hasn't hit that level, we can go, okay, cool. Well, we know that if you hadn't hit a certain KPI with marketing or with retention or so on, we're like, okay, well, there's a number of factors underneath that we can isolate and go, well, if that hasn't worked, that would lead to that. So the point that I'm getting at here is, I want you guys to view everything as a system, right? We have systematic thinking. If we're not getting a result in one area, it is because the system behind that is not getting us an outcome.
Yes.
So we think about everything as a system. For example, we might be tracking, I know we're going into a lot of meta advertising tomorrow, and it'll be, well, how many conversions, how many new patients is everyone getting from meta?
Yes.
So we might look at, well, if the conversion numbers aren't there, we look at that as a system and go, okay, well, were the number of leads there through opt-ins?
Yes.
And that's simply a yes or a no.
Yeah.
And if it's a no, we're like, well, why not? So we're now going to isolate to that part of the system.
Yes.
If they were there, they were okay, well, they weren't converted. So now let's look at the conversion mechanism, what's going on, what's going wrong there. So that's from a marketing perspective. If we're saying like a retention perspective, an example could be like patient rebooking as a system.
Yes.
Everything is a system. So let's think of this as an example, like back when I had my physiotherapy practice and I had multiple staff members, and I can think of someone off the top of my head, I can think of Casey, who was just epic with patients, and patient let it follow his advice, he'd rebook. He was just amazing. Whereas I'd have someone else in the team who I won't name, that wouldn't be appropriate. I almost did it. It almost came out. And talk to my therapist about this. It's still there. I haven't processed this properly. All jokes aside, you think of someone else that isn't doing that, isn't rebooking. It's like, well, hang on, why not? Because it's a system. So I think rebooking as a system is getting a yes from the patient in the room that they are happy to follow your advice. That's part of the system. One step before that is how we actually present the solution to them. That's the system. Then the next part is, once we've presented it, they're happy with it. It's had to be transition out to the front, out the room, to have that trust transference. Next part of the system is, what was the handover to the front of staff? Did we stay there to objection handle and smooth things out? It's an entire system,
yes,
right? So when we look at retention tomorrow, we're going to assess the retention and the sales systems of our members. So everything is a system, right? So in constraint theory, if you want to go to that next level, we need to identify, with that area you're not getting to that level you want, what is the system behind that? Okay. And that brings me to point number 2, which is to isolate the constraint.
Yes.
So let's talk on that, Dave. What are your thoughts on how we go about isolating the constraint?
Yeah. So, when we speak about our members tomorrow, especially the board presentations, we're always going to be searching for what's the 80-20.
Yeah.
Also, what's the big impact with the small tweak? What's the 20% action that's going to have the 80%?
And you call it the big easy.
Yeah, the big easy.
And I love
that's
that.
Right.
The big easy.
Big easy is like, what is that? Well, if you just think about an impact easy, XY grid, what's going to create is the biggest amount of impact. It's going to be the easiest thing to implement.
Yeah.
And we're always searching for that because simplicity scales, complexity fails. So we're always looking for these buzzwords like, what's the 80-20? Big doors swing on small hinges.
Yes. That's funny because when we were at coffee, sorry, I'm distracting you, but when we were at coffee this morning, chatting with another team member, and literally, I'll show you this afterwards. The message was, small doors swing on small hinges.
Big doors.
Sorry.
Massive doors. Big doors.
Ginormous monster truck doors swing on tiny little, mice-size hinges.
Yes.
And it's just like, it's part of our vernacular, the way we talk. And we're always looking for that 80-20.
That's right. And then it's like you said before, we speak with our members, they know our language, which is you're building an acquisition system. So for speak to your previous point, an acquisition system is about entertaining and understanding all the different parts in your patient attraction and retention model, which is, yes, there's a marketing element, but then once we get people to raise their hands and say, yes, I would like to get some support from your service, marketing's done its job. Therefore, it now moves to the conversion, which is all about conversation and connection and inviting them into the clinic. And once they arrive at the clinic, conversion's done its job.
Yes.
So now we move into the retention phase, which is all about the experience they get. It's all about the clinical pathway that they follow. It's then about
how it's been presented.
Do they then accept that? And then it's all about the experience that they have. And then we go into our referral phase, which is do they stay, play, and pay? So therefore, there's a whole phase to this. But essentially, when we say isolate the constraint, too often the challenge that I see people have is like, too many tire kickers or too many lead, too many this, too many that, and they're just blaming.
It's reactive, right?
An element. Well, too often they blame the marketing. Yeah. They say, it's your leads and your ad's going to work.
My favorite ones that people blame right now is, things are down. And there's what you and I see a lot with, like, we've got proactive people and they're like, without using constraint theory, they're like, the problem's over here. They're trying to isolate it, but they're isolating the wrong thing. But so they're proactive. And those people that don't want to take responsibility are, profit's down. It's the economy.
Yes.
They're blaming something that's outside of their control. I just find that quite hilarious.
Absolutely.
Because in any economy, people are thriving.
Yeah.
Because they're really nailing down these things. Yeah. Anyway, I digress. Back to it. I just wanted to share that.
Well, the point number 2 is isolating the constraint. And I don't want to mean this as simple as what it is, but simplicity scales, which is, you think about garden hose. You have the element with the tap in and then the connection piece.
Yeah.
Then you have the end element, which is a hose with the water. If the water's not coming out and it's not achieving what you want it to do, well, you just simply trace your steps, right? You go right to the very beginning. Is the tap even on? Then it's like, okay, the tap is on. Is it on to the flow that I want rather than trickle or flow? It is flowing. I can hear it flowing, but I still don't see what's going on. Okay, is the connection, in other words, is the water leaking out the side?
So well said.
Well, the water is water's going through. So what is it? There's a kink in the hose. So I flatten out the kink and then all of a sudden the water comes out. So the whole point is it's about retracing. First of all, you said system.
Yes.
And it's about knowing, okay, what is that system from start to finish?
Do you actually have a system?
Well,
and if not, create it. Like, if it's dependent on a person, we just go, well, like we said in the last episode, how do we have a system designed so that an actor can step in and follow these processes?
And then also, well, if the system is not working to the standard or you feel that you can improve, just simply retrace the system until you find the kink.
Yes.
Is it the start? Is it at the middle? Is it at the end? Is it perhaps maybe there's no kinks in the system, but maybe it's just not going strong enough, like the tap's not flowing on, or maybe there's a setting that you need to change, or either way, we're just looking at what is that 80-20? Yeah. What is that big door that's swinging on that small hinge?
And it's going into a lot more depth, isn't it? And we're doing this a lot with our clients, and it's as you're listening to this, like when people reach out to us, if someone isn't hitting their goals in business, and like I said, there's 3 reasons why we're in business typically, is to achieve freedom of finance, freedom of time, and freedom of headspace. And if we're not achieving one of those 3 things, we typically go looking around to blame something.
Yeah.
And it's like, number 1, we might blame, the most classic one to get blamed is marketing. Marketing we're not getting enough leads, right? The second most classic one to complain is something wrong with my team.
Yes.
Okay. That's the most classic ones. But the reality is, it's without actually having a systematic process to go through and look at where's the actual issue. We're just blame it. and we're not taking responsibility.
Yeah, well, for every finger you point, you've always got 3 fingers pointing back, right?
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah. So that brings me on to point number 3, which is fix one element at a time.
And then test.
Yeah.
So
we're thinking about the situation before where we're looking at marketing. We're talking about the role of marketing is to make sure we get more clients, more leads, more people booking appointments, and so on. And if we're not getting enough leads, we can look at the constraint in the system and go, well, hang on, are we getting enough opt-ins?
Yeah.
Are we actually spending enough on budget? We can look at all these different things. Have we refreshed the creative? What's the frequency score? What's the click-through rate? And what's the cost per click? Like, we can go through all these different elements in the system and go, where is it off track? And then we can fix one at a time, right? So this brings me back, like we had a meeting yesterday with an advisor to our business. And like I've come in, so in this moment, I'm a client of our advisor. And it's interesting, so I get to experience what it's like being a client. And it's a different mindset to when I'm being an advisor and being a mentor like this. And I'm sitting there, and there's a problem that obviously I want to solve. Otherwise, we wouldn't be bringing in an advisor. And we get a lot of advisors because we really value external help. We practice what we preach. And I'm sitting there, and there's like this constraint that I want to fix, you want to fix, we all want to fix. And my natural default is, great. Well, Tristan, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this. I'm like, fantastic, let's fix them all now. Like now. And it's like, that's not going to work. He messaged me afterwards, goes, hey, 1 percentage point per day, and then we're going to change the world by the end of the year. And it's just like, change one little thing at a time and measure, right?
Yeah.
And it's like interesting because I'm an advisor. I do this for a living. And it's just so natural as a human. We just want to fix things.
Yes.
And we want to fix them fast. So
let me share a story.
Please.
You know, it's not a story. It's more like a parable or a metaphor.
Oh, I want a parable.
Oh, no, a parable is more Bible. It's not really that. It's more a metaphor. That's what I'm getting at, right? But it's the transfer. You know, it's like, let's go back to the purpose. We want growth.
Yeah.
Nothing grows unless it meets a challenge.
Yeah.
First thing, it's a universal truth. How do I know it's a universal truth? Well, you only have to look at the life cycle of a caterpillar to a butterfly.
This is a parable. I love it.
You know, but the idea is like, if you think about a caterpillar will do its thing, and then it gets to the point where it wants to grow, where it goes into its pulp and it cocoons itself, and it transforms. Now then, as the butterfly comes out of that cocoon, interestingly, it needs to go through the strain, it needs to go through the struggle in order for it to fully form.
Yes.
Because in the event, like for example, a photographer is noticing this transformation and it goes, oh, I'll go over and I'll just help the little butterfly come out of the cocoon.
Not good.
It's the worst thing it can, because therefore it doesn't fully develop and the transformation is not there. In other words, the butterfly's wings are not strong enough and it can't fly away.
Yes.
So what is my point in all this? Well, my point is that yes, as you said, we're getting some help from an advisor, and therefore in that moment it's, I just want it now. I just want the outcome. It's a bit like the photographer going over and trying to help the butterfly speed up the process.
Yes.
But in fact, as a result of trying to speed up the process and do everything quickly, you're not actually experiencing the growth and the change that you actually need. So for anyone that's actually going through constraints right now, well, you're not going to fix everything overnight.
No.
So don't try and rush it. Understand that by going through these constraints is actually making you better.
Yes.
Actually allowing you to grow, but you grow by actually just solving that one thing at a time. A bit like the caterpillar, which is the transformation is, I'm a caterpillar, then I'm going to go into that pulp form, then I'm going to go into this form, but it's just one thing at a time that I'm going to solve.
Yes.
And as a matter of going through that challenge, that's what's actually going to make you strong on the other side. So it's just like, for everyone that's listening, it's like, well, what's that one thing we need right now? And understand that the challenge or the frustration of actually trying to fix it is all part of the process and part of the growth.
You know, every time we do a podcast together, and you, as an audience, you guys listening, and this must be like mind blowing for you, because every time I hear Dave talk, I just want to step out of the podcast and write notes and go, this is what I want to work on right now, because it's so profound. Yeah. It is so profound. And so I appreciate you so much. You're amazing.
Oh, you're amazing.
Thank you. Oh, how good are we pumping each other's tires up?
Yeah.
This is the best. But by going through and like applying that process, it's, you know, I want to share something else, which I was thinking about. I was listening to this on the treadmill this morning as we're at the gym. And I think one of the enemies we face is we want to fix things, but we want it to be too fast. And it's like, well, hang on. It doesn't have to be in a rush. So there's an element of patience to it. right? Like, one thing at a time. And then once that's done, we look at the next constraint. And it's understanding that there's always going to be another problem there. And stopping wishing away all these problems.
Yeah.
Because that's where the opportunity is. You was talking about the caterpillar and the butterfly. Yeah. Like, that needs to struggle to go into the butterfly. And that's what we need in our business is we need the struggle, but we needed a way to approach it in a healthy way.
Yes.
Go, hey, this sucks, but we'd be amazing on the other side. Yeah. And let's go through it one bit at a time. Because if we try to fix everything at once, that's just way too overwhelming. We're not going to be able to do it. So it's one thing at a time. It's having patience with it. And something Dan Sullivan says a lot, and I really love this. It's looking back at how far we've come and not having horizon-based thinking. Like, well, because it's otherwise comparing to the horizon, you're never going to get to that horizon.
Yeah.
It's like looking back. How far have we progressed?
Well, it's acknowledging, don't look back only to see how far you've come. Which is the acknowledgement, and because we don't do it enough, is acknowledgement, is realizing how far what we used to be like, because we can't buy experience.
Yes.
And that's unfortunately sometimes we want to speed things up. I just want things now.
Yeah.
Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Meaning that if we try and rush things, that's where even more mistakes can be.
Absolutely.
You can't buy experience, so sometimes it's just letting the weathering happen.
Yes.
Which is you just do the thing, you suck at it, and that's what it's okay. Like, you mark it for the first time, you will suck.
Yeah, 100%.
Go into your
the next time you suck a little bit less.
Yes, and that's it. And then you just get better that way. And you got to embrace the suck.
Yeah.
And you got to understand right now, this thing I'm about to do, leading, marketing, training, recruiting, whatever it is you've got to do, you're going to suck.
Yeah, and just get it done.
Yeah, embrace it, learn from it. What worked, what didn't work, what could be better next time? What's the one thing that I need to focus on? Right, I'm going to focus on this one thing, and then I'm going to suck a little bit less.
Yeah, exactly. That's the goal. Suck a little bit less every time.
That's it.
I love that. Oh, I love that. Oh, I'm going to try to suck less at something today, and then tomorrow I'll suck a little bit less. And
I need lollipops.
Yeah. Yeah, we need some more t-shirts made with lollipop references on there. You need just suck less.
Yeah.
I love that. So I'm just going to recap the 3 points we talked about today. Firstly, number one is we want to identify everything is a system and have systematic thinking. Number two is that we want to then isolate the constraint within that system. And then number three is fix one thing at a time, but also just have the understanding that you're not going to be amazing overnight. And it's just, we want to go one little bit better at a time.
Yeah.
All right. And we think about once again, I'm going to reference the fact we've got a 2-day workshop coming up and there's some fabulous people coming with us. And I think about Mike, who's a vet, and he's been with us now for like 3 years, and he still has challenges. And tomorrow, the challenges he's got tomorrow that we're going to be solving are very different to what he had 3 years ago.
That's right.
But I reckon 3 years ago, if we said, hey, Mike, in 3 years' time,
These are the challenges you're going to be facing.
he'd be very excited.
Yeah.
Because it would have been like, hey, we're going to be talking about the challenges you're facing with that private hospital you built. And if we said to him 3 years ago, he'd be like, what private hospital? I don't own one.
Yeah.
He's now built his own private hospital. Or like, you're going to be talking about how to get better leadership for your general manager. He'd be like, I don't have one. Like imagine that, like looking at the problems he's going to be solving in the future, and it's just one step at a time of imperfect action. Yeah. But what he does differently now is he's approaching this problem solving through a lens of what's the challenge I now be focused on, rather than how do I get rid of all these challenges and when's it going to get easy?
Yeah.
Because it's not going to get easy, but it gets easier when we approach it in a more healthy way.
Yeah.
And that's what I want you guys to do is we're going to approach change, we're going to approach opportunity, we're going to approach constraints as opportunities and just do one thing at a time with systematic thinking, and we're going to be patient with it. So I hope you guys found this really, really valuable. I've loved talking about this, and I'm actually going to write down some notes afterwards because it's so valid for our business and me personally. Did you get some good stuff out of this episode?
Absolutely. Every episode I do.
How good is this?
Yeah.
I feel like we've just had our staff meeting and we've just solved all the world's problems. I wish Sarah was here. Then we wouldn't have to meet this afternoon.
That's it. We've got to fix one thing at a time.
That's one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for listening and watching. Please make sure if you found this valuable, which I really hope that you did, please make sure that you share and like this. Send it to someone out there who owns a practice so that we can impact them and really help them to grow their world so they can enjoy their business and live life to the fullest. So thank you once again for joining in. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now. Ciao, ciao. Arrivederci.